I still remember the first thing the website asked me, "Are you certain you want to be noticed?" There weren't any buttons, no blinking cursor, just those 8 words floating in the center of a black page while my monitor hummed loudly enough to make me wonder if the speakers were somehow on. I stared at it for almost a minute before deciding it was another one of those amateur ARG websites people made to scare strangers. Back then, everyone online wanted to convince you they'd stumbled onto something forbidden. Secret government broadcasts, number stations, hidden webcams, murder live streams. Most of it was fake. I knew that. I'd spent enough nights digging through forgotten forums and abandoned message boards to recognize when someone was trying too hard. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that the page wasn't waiting for a click. It was waiting for me. I pressed enter. Nothing happened. I clicked. Nothing. The words remained perfectly still. Then, without warning, they disappeared. Another sentence faded into view. Good. My apartment suddenly felt much quieter than it had a second earlier. I looked behind me. There was no reason to. The apartment was one room with a kitchenette shoved against one wall and a bathroom barely large enough to close the door without turning sideways. There wasn't anywhere for anyone to hide. Still, I checked. Empty. When I turned back to the monitor, the browser had closed itself. I told myself it was just Internet Explorer crashing again. That happened enough in 2003. I laughed. Actually laughed. Then I unplugged my speakers even though I hadn't heard anything through them. I didn't know it then, but that was the last ordinary night of my life. Most people probably wouldn't remember someone like me. I barely remembered myself. 28 years old, claims processing clerk. Not because I enjoyed it, because no one noticed if I showed up, did my work, and left. Every morning I rode the same city bus, the same driver, the same cracked vinyl seat halfway down the aisle. I could have disappeared for a week before anyone in that office would have asked where I went. That wasn't bitterness, it was routine. Routine was safe, predictable. My apartment reflected that. White walls, off-white carpet, cheap beige couch, wooden coffee table with one uneven leg. No paintings, no photographs, no plants. Nothing personal except a computer desk shoved into the corner beside the only window. People decorate their homes with memories. I didn't have enough memories worth hanging on a wall. The computer was the only thing that looked alive. A bulky CRT monitor. Tower case with one side panel missing because it overheated. A tangle of wires that looked more complicated than they actually were. At night, the monitor painted everything blue. That blue glow became my real address. Work ended around 5. Dinner came from the microwave. The internet started around 7. Sometimes it ended when birds began singing outside. People today don't understand what the internet felt like back then. It wasn't polished, it wasn't designed, it felt enormous, like wandering through endless abandoned buildings where every hallway led somewhere no one had visited in years. Search engines were unreliable, links died constantly. You clicked one page and somehow ended up reading a conspiracy forum hosted by a guy in Nebraska who insisted mirrors could record dreams. It was perfect. Real life made me feel invisible. Online. I felt like I was walking behind the curtains of the world. Most people use the internet to buy things, chat, play games. I wanted mysteries, unsolved disappearances, hidden websites, encrypted message boards, rumors about things that weren't supposed to exist. Every rabbit hole promised that eventually I'd find something real, something that proved the world wasn't as empty as my apartment. It became an obsession without me realizing it. Every strange post, every corrupted image, every dead hyperlink, every anonymous email. I convinced myself one more click would finally uncover something extraordinary. I didn't realize extraordinary was looking for me too. 3 nights after that strange website appeared, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I checked my browser history. Nothing. Temporary files, nothing. Cookies, nothing. It was as though the page had never existed. I searched every phrase I could remember. Are you certain you want to be noticed? Nothing. Good. Millions of useless results. I searched archived web directories, old hacker forums, IRC logs. Nothing. It bothered me more than it should have. The internet remembered everything. Even broken pages usually left fingerprints somewhere. This one hadn't. Around midnight, an anonymous user joined an IRC room I'd been lurking in for months. No introduction, no greeting, just one message. You found it. The room contained 37 people. No one replied. The message disappeared almost immediately. I typed before I could stop myself. Found what? No answer. Instead, another message appeared. Not everyone gets invited twice. Disconnected. That was it. Someone in the room joked that another script kiddie had discovered copy and paste. Everyone moved on. I didn't. My hands had started sweating. Not because I believed it, but because I wanted to. Sleep became difficult after that. Every night I dreamed of crowded places, train stations, shopping malls, busy intersections. Thousands of people moving around me without ever looking in my direction. I'd wave, shout, grab shoulders. No one reacted. Then I'd wake to the soft electrical buzz of my monitor, not turned on and just buzzing, like old television sometimes did after being unplugged. The first time I assumed I'd forgotten to shut the computer down. I hadn't. The tower was off, power strips switched off, monitor dark, yet I could hear electricity humming inside it. The sound stopped the moment I looked directly at it. About a week later, I found another site, or maybe it found me. The address wasn't words, just numbers separated by periods, no title. Black background again, different font this time. Centered text. There are 18,426 people currently looking for something impossible. The number changed while I watched. 18,425, 18,427, 18,421, as if updating live. Another sentence appeared beneath it. Most are looking in the wrong direction. I leaned closer. There were still no buttons, no menus. Nothing except a blinking line beneath the text. Finally, something to type into. I hesitated, then wrote the only thing that felt honest. I'm looking for something real. The cursor froze. Nothing happened for nearly 30 seconds. I almost closed the browser. Instead, the page refreshed. Real things notice when they're being searched for. Another pause. Then, tell us your name. I should have closed the browser. Any normal person would have. Instead, I smiled, because after years of wandering dead corners of the internet, something had answered. I typed my first name. The browser closed instantly. No error, no crash, just gone. Outside my apartment window, somewhere in the parking lot below, someone whispered my name, not loudly and not dramatically, just enough for me to hear it through the cracked open window. Daniel. I froze. The parking lot was empty. One flickering sodium light buzzed over 6 vacant parking spaces. Nothing moved, no footsteps, no cars, no voices, only the light buzzing. Then it went dark for exactly 1 second. When it came back on, someone was standing directly beneath it, facing my building, too far away to recognize, perfectly still, watching my window. I blinked. The parking lot was empty again. I closed the blinds, locked the window, checked the front door twice, then sat in complete darkness until sunrise, convinced that if I looked outside one more time, someone would still be there, waiting for me to notice them. He never told anyone about the figure beneath the parking lot light. Not because I thought they wouldn't believe me, because saying it out loud would have made it real. People think loneliness means having no one to talk to. It doesn't. Loneliness is having something you could say, but knowing the moment you say it, people begin looking at you differently. I already felt invisible. I didn't want to become the office lunatic on top of it. So I went to work. I filed claims. I answered the same questions. I nodded through conversations I couldn't remember 5 minutes later. The woman in the next cubicle, Linda, I think, asked if I'd gotten a haircut. I hadn't. The security guard greeted me by name. He'd never done that before. As I rode the elevator up, I caught myself wondering if they had always known who I was, or if they had only just started noticing me. That thought stayed with me the entire day. When I got home, my apartment felt wrong. Nothing obvious. The couch was where I'd left it. The dishes were still in the sink. The blinds were closed. But there was a faint smell in the room. Not mold, not smoke. It reminded me of the inside of an old library after a rainstorm. Paper, dust. Something ancient that had absorbed too many years. I searched every corner before convincing myself it had drifted in through the hallway. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that the apartment had been occupied while I was gone. Not robbed, visited. I stopped sleeping through the night. Every morning I woke at exactly 3:13, not 3:12, not 3:14. Always 3:13. The first few times I checked the clock because I happened to wake up. Eventually I began waking because I wanted to know if it would still be 3:13. It always was. One morning I opened my eyes a second before the alarm clock's digital numbers changed. 3:12. I watched them become 3:13. At that exact instant, something tapped once against my apartment door. Just once. Soft, like someone politely letting me know they had arrived. I held my breath. Nothing else happened. After nearly 5 minutes, I forced myself to look through the peephole. The hallway was empty. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Apartment 204 across from mine remained dark. No footsteps, no closing doors, no elevator. Whoever had knocked should have still been there. Instead, there was only silence. My evenings became consumed by the search. I wasn't looking for hidden websites anymore. I was looking for them. The 2 pages I'd found had to belong to someone. Someone had built them. Someone else had visited them. Someone had to know what they meant. After almost a week of digging through forgotten message boards and archived directories, I found a thread buried inside an abandoned discussion forum. The title was simple. If you receive an invitation, ignore it. There were only 12 replies. Most were nonsense. Jokes, arguments, broken image links. Then one comment caught my attention. The mistake everyone makes is thinking they're searching for the site. They aren't. The site searches until it finds someone already searching for something else. No username, no date, just those words. Another reply beneath it read, "If it learns your name, stop using mirrors." That one was dated 4 years earlier. No explanation, no follow-up. The account had vanished. I laughed under my breath. It sounded ridiculous. Exactly the kind of cryptic nonsense internet forums loved. And yet, when I walked past my bathroom later that night, I caught myself avoiding the mirror. A few days later, I broke that promise. I was brushing my teeth when I noticed movement behind me. Not a reflection moving late, not a shadow, someone crossing the bathroom doorway. I spun around so quickly, toothpaste sprayed onto the wall. Nothing. The apartment was empty. Heart pounding, I looked back into the mirror. Only me. Only something felt wrong about my reflection. It wasn't delayed. It wasn't smiling. Nothing dramatic. It simply looked tired. More tired than I felt. Its shoulders hung lower. Its eyes seemed older. I blinked. It blinked, perfectly synchronized. I leaned closer. So did it. I told myself I was imagining things. Then I noticed something impossible. There was dust on the bathroom mirror. Not much, just enough that if someone touched it, they'd leave a mark. Across the lower right corner were 4 letters, written with a fingertip. Seen. I stared at them until my breathing became uneven. I hadn't written them. I almost convinced myself they had been there for weeks. Then I wiped the mirror clean. The websites stopped appearing for nearly a week. That frightened me more than when they had. I'd grown accustomed to waiting for them, checking every strange link, opening every suspicious email. Nothing. It felt like someone had stopped returning my calls. Then, on a Thursday evening, my computer switched itself on. The monitor flashed to life before the tower made a sound. Impossible. I watched the screen brighten into a plain black background. White text slowly appeared. Observation complete. Another line followed. Subject adapting successfully. I froze. A third line. You wanted to become the main character. The cursor blinked. I reached toward the keyboard. The monitor immediately went black. Not shut off. Black. Like the screen itself had become a window into an unlit room. For a second, I could swear I saw another face where my reflection should have been. Not looking at me, looking past me, as though someone stood just behind my chair. I turned. Nothing. When I looked back, Windows was loading as though the computer had just booted normally. The changes at work became harder to ignore. Co-workers I'd barely spoken to for years suddenly remembered conversations we'd never had. One insisted I'd told him about visiting Chicago. I'd never been to Chicago. Another asked if my headaches had gotten better. I'd never mentioned headaches. By Friday afternoon, I found myself wondering if they were confusing me with someone else. Then Linda walked over carrying a stack of folders. "You okay?" she asked. "I've been better." She hesitated. "You've changed." I laughed awkwardly. "Have I?" "You used to blend in." The words hit harder than she intended. She frowned. "I don't know how else to explain it. It's like..." She searched for the right phrase. "People keep looking at you now." She walked away before I could answer. I never asked what she meant, because I already knew. That night, the parking lot light came back on. It hadn't worked since the figure disappeared beneath it. Around midnight, I parted the blinds just enough to peek outside. The light buzzed steadily. Empty spaces, still air. Then someone walked into the circle of light. A man, average height, dark jacket, his face hidden beneath the glow. He looked directly toward my apartment. I stepped backward. When I looked again, there were 2 people, standing shoulder to shoulder. Neither moved, neither spoke. I grabbed my phone. By the time the camera app opened, there were 3, then 4, then 6. Each had entered so naturally I couldn't say when they'd arrived. None acknowledged the others. Every one of them faced my window. I snapped a picture. The flash reflected off the glass. For an instant, I couldn't see outside. When my vision cleared, the parking lot was empty. I checked the photograph. No people, only the buzzing light. Yet, zoomed into the lower left corner, there was something my camera had captured that my eyes hadn't. A shadow, not attached to anything. Standing directly behind where I had been taking the picture, inside my apartment. I stopped using the computer for 2 days. I unplugged it entirely, disconnected the modem, removed the phone line from the wall. It shouldn't have mattered. Late Saturday evening, while reading a paperback on the couch, I heard the unmistakable chirp of a dial-up modem negotiating a connection. High-pitched static, clicks, electronic squeals. The sound echoed from the unplugged computer. I walked toward it slowly. The monitor flickered to life. No Windows logo, no desktop, only another black screen, one sentence. Connections are not made with wires. The text vanished, then another. Open the window! I backed away. Another sentence appeared. They're waiting politely. A knock interrupted the room. 3 slow taps, not on the apartment door, on the living room window. My apartment was on the 2nd floor. There was no balcony, no fire escape, nothing outside that window except empty air. 3 more taps. I couldn't move. Something slid across the glass. Slowly, as though fingertips were dragging downward from the top of the window. The blinds hid whatever was outside. Only the sound reached me. A dry, deliberate scrape, then silence. I stayed frozen for nearly an hour. When I finally gathered the courage to pull the blinds aside, the window was empty. No marks, no ladder, no explanation. Only my own pale reflection staring back at me. Except, it wasn't staring at me anymore. It was looking over my shoulder. The next morning, I packed a bag. Not because I believed I was in danger, because I wanted one night where every sound didn't make me question reality. I booked the cheapest motel 20 miles away. The room smelled like bleach and stale cigarettes. It was ugly, perfect. I left the television on all night just to drown out my thoughts. Around 3:13 a.m., I woke to the sound of the TV switching to static. The volume slowly lowered by itself until the room was almost silent. Then a familiar hum filled the air. Not from the television, from the motel's old CRT set. The same electrical buzz my monitor had made. Words appeared through the static, not typed, not digital, as if someone were writing them behind the glass. You cannot leave a story after you become part of it. The screen went black. In the reflection, I wasn't alone. Every person I'd seen beneath the parking lot light stood behind my bed, perfectly still, facing me. I spun around. The room was empty. When I looked back at the television, only one figure remained on the screen, closer than the others had been. Close enough that I could finally make out a face. It was mine, smiling. I had never seen myself smile like that before, Then it leaned toward the inside of the glass and whispered words I couldn't hear. The television clicked off. The room fell completely silent. For the first time since this began, I understood something with absolute certainty. Whatever had found me on that website wasn't trying to kill me, it was trying to replace me. I didn't go back to the motel after sunrise. I checked out without speaking to the clerk, tossed my bag into the trunk of my car, and sat behind the wheel until the windshield fogged from my breathing. Every mirror seemed wrong now. The rearview mirror, the side mirrors, even the reflection in the darkened GPS screen. Every version of me looked like it was waiting for me to look away first. By the time I pulled back into my apartment complex, I had almost convinced myself I was exhausted enough to hallucinate anything. The apartment door was unlocked. I knew I'd locked it. I always locked it. Inside, everything appeared untouched. The beige couch, the uneven coffee table, the white walls with nothing hanging on them. But the room no longer felt empty. It felt occupied, not by another person, by another presence. The air carried the sharp smell of ozone, the scent that lingers after lightning, though the sky outside was perfectly clear. My computer was already on. The power cord still lay unplugged on the floor. The monitor glowed anyway. Only 2 words waited for me. "You're late." A nervous laugh escaped my throat. "You've got the wrong person." The text vanished. Another sentence slowly appeared. "That is exactly the problem." The screen faded to black. For the first time since all of this began, no new message appeared. Only my reflection. It smiled. I wasn't smiling. I stopped going to work. No one called. No one checked on me. It was as if my absence barely disturbed the world. On the 3rd day, my answering machine clicked on by itself. I expected my supervisor. Instead, I heard my own voice. "Daniel." Static. "You should hurry." Another burst of static. "It's almost time." The message ended. No caller ID, no timestamp. I unplugged the machine and threw it into the dumpster behind the building. That night, I heard it playing somewhere inside the walls. Time began behaving strangely. Sometimes I would blink and discover 6 hours had vanished. Food spoiled in my refrigerator because I couldn't remember buying it. Dirty dishes appeared in the sink after meals I never recalled eating. One morning, I found muddy footprints leading from my apartment door into my bedroom. They were too large to be mine. I followed them. They stopped beside my bed. Nothing led back. The internet became silent. No mysterious websites, no anonymous messages, no impossible pages. The silence felt intentional, like something no longer needed to communicate. It had already made its decision. Desperate for proof that I wasn't losing my mind, I browsed ordinary websites, news, sports, weather. Everything looked normal until one headline flashed onto the screen. "Local man missing for 11 days." The photograph beneath it was mine. I clicked. The page refreshed. Baseball scores. Back. Refresh. Weather forecast. Again. Nothing. The article no longer existed. Only my shaking hands remained. At exactly 3:13 a.m. 3 nights later, the apartment became perfectly silent. The refrigerator stopped humming. The plumbing stopped groaning. Outside, traffic disappeared. Even my own breathing seemed swallowed by the room. Then someone spoke. You wanted your life to matter. The voice came from nowhere. And everywhere, it sounded exactly like mine, only older, certain. I wanted purpose. You wanted to be noticed. The hallway outside exploded with footsteps, hundreds, perfectly synchronized. I looked through the peephole. The corridor was filled with people, men, women, children. Every apartment door stood open. Every face looked directly at mine. No one blinked. No one moved. I unlocked the door. The hallway was empty. When I turned back, someone was sitting at my computer. It looked exactly like me. Same hair, same clothes, and same tired face. Only its eyes were wrong. They weren't cruel. They weren't angry. They were curious, like a scientist examining an insect. You finally opened the door, it said. Its voice was perfect, perfect enough that I could no longer trust my own. What are you? It stood slowly. Every movement felt rehearsed, like someone who had studied human behavior for centuries but had only recently been given the chance to imitate it. I've been called many things. Answer me. You don't have a word for what I am. It smiled. This wasn't my smile. Its lips stretched just a little farther than they should have. Its eyes remained completely emotionless. You spent years searching for hidden worlds because you believed your own life wasn't enough. I wanted something real, and that desire opened the door. The walls around us began peeling apart. The paint lifted in thin strips like old wallpaper. Beneath it wasn't drywall, it was paper, layer upon layer, millions of sheets, each covered with names, different handwriting, different ink, different languages. Some faded with age, others looked freshly written. I saw names I'd read years ago on forgotten forums, users who vanished without explanation, people whose final posts ended mid-sentence. Every one of them had answered, "You weren't chosen because you were special," the creature whispered. "You were chosen because you answered." The computer monitor came alive. For the first time, it showed moving images instead of words. Apartments, dorm rooms, basements, bedrooms. People sitting alone before glowing screens, scrolling, searching, waiting. The view continued, pulling farther away. Cities, countries, clouds. Until Earth floated silently against the darkness of space. Tiny lights blinked across its surface. Millions of computer screens, millions of lonely people. The creature stared at them with unmistakable hunger. "So many invitations," it whispered. "So many doors. I won't let you." The creature laughed softly. "You already have." It stepped toward me. "I don't need permission anymore." "What do you want?" It looked almost amused. "You think too small." It raised one hand. "I don't want your life." It rested 2 fingers against the center of my forehead. "I want your world." Pain exploded through my skull. Not physical pain, something deeper. As though my thoughts were being pulled apart thread by thread. The apartment dissolved. The floor disappeared beneath me. Darkness swallowed everything. When I opened my eyes, I was still sitting in front of a computer. Except there was no apartment anymore. No walls, no ceiling, no floor, only an endless black void stretching forever. Floating around me were thousands of browser windows, forgotten forums, dead chat rooms, archived websites, email inboxes, message boards. Every abandoned corner of the internet drifted through the darkness like broken pieces of stained glass. I stood. The ground rippled beneath my feet, made not of concrete but of shifting text. Every step produced fragments of conversations, old usernames, deleted comments, broken links. I ran. There was nowhere to go. Every direction led to more screens, more empty websites, more forgotten voices echoing into nothing. Then every monitor flickered on at once. They weren't displaying web pages, they were displaying Earth. I saw my apartment. The front door opened. My body walked inside. No, its body. It flexed my fingers one by one, studying them with fascination. It smiled. It walked to the bathroom mirror, touched my face, practiced my expressions, spoke with my voice until every word sounded effortless. Then it laughed. Not because anything was funny, because it finally could. Time no longer existed where I was. Days, years, centuries, they all blended together. I watched through an endless sea of screens as the creature perfected being human. It learned my handwriting, my signature, my laugh, my memories. It never stumbled, no one questioned it. Why would they? It looked exactly like me. Eventually, when no one else was watching, it stopped pretending. Sometimes I watched it stand perfectly still in the middle of the living room for hours, staring into nothing. Sometimes it would smile at strangers for just a little too long. Sometimes it followed people after dark, not because it needed to, but because it enjoyed watching fear slowly replace certainty. Neighbors said I'd changed. Some thought I'd become more outgoing. Others said my eyes looked different, like I had stopped recognizing other people as people. No one stayed curious for long. Then the news began. Missing children, entire families disappearing without signs of forced entry, security footage showing an ordinary man calmly walking away moments before impossible crimes were discovered. Witnesses struggled to describe him. I've seen him before. I just can't remember where. The face feels familiar. The cameras never caught enough detail. They didn't need to. I recognized my own walk, my own hands, my own voice. Every report echoed through the endless web surrounding me. Every scream reached me. I pounded against the glowing screens until my fists bled. No one could hear me. No one even knew I was there. I had spent years afraid of being a background character. Now I had become something worse, a witness, condemned to watch evil wearing my skin while the world believed it was me. I don't know how long I've been trapped here. The internet grows larger every year. More screens, more people, more lonely souls searching for meaning through glowing rectangles. Every forgotten website eventually drifts past me. Every abandoned forum becomes another prison cell. Sometimes I think I hear the voices of others, names from the walls. People who answered before I did. We can never find each other, only hear one another somewhere beyond the static. Not long ago, one screen caught my attention, an apartment, almost as empty as mine had been. A young woman sat alone before an old computer. She looked exhausted, restless, searching. A black web page slowly loaded. White words appeared in the center of the screen. She leaned closer. I threw myself against the glass. I screamed until my throat tore open. I begged. I pounded my fists against the screen with everything I had. She never looked at me. She couldn't. To her, I was just another shadow trapped behind the monitor. The page asked its question. Are you certain you want to be noticed? Her fingers drifted toward the keyboard. Then I saw it, reflected in the dark computer monitor behind her. A man standing silently in the doorway. My face, my smile, watching her with patient, impossible hunger. It wasn't looking for another victim. It was looking for another way in. And I realized with horror that I had never been trapped inside the internet. I had been trapped inside its window, watching it learn how to open every door,